It's Monday, July 29th, 2024. Why no news is bad news. The honeymoon is in full swing, and no, it's not a sin to be outraged by the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. Next on the AM Update. It should not be like this. This was a slow news weekend, and usually the mantra is no news is good news. But when you take into account the events of the last month or so in this country, no news is very troubling news. It should not be like this. It's as if the events of the past 2 weeks alone haven't even happened. Google has taken to censoring searches of Trump's attempted assassination. When you go to Google as of Sunday evening, and you type in attempted assassination of TR, it comes up with the suggestion of attempted assassination of Truman. You have to type Trump's full name in to actually get a search result. Google is trying to, in real time, Orwell what just happened 2 weeks ago. The FBI released an official statement over the weekend trying to quell some of their Blue Anon members over in progressive leftist land. Well, they released a statement over the weekend confirming Donald Trump was indeed hit with a bullet. That's basically telegraphing to their base, hey, shut up with this stuff about how he wasn't even hit with a bullet. ABC News this week, to their credit, assembled a group of local law enforcement working on Trump's detail on July 13th. But one of the local SWAT members they talked to isn't making the attempted assassination any less confounding.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
Oh. Anyway, moving on. Why are we moving on? Well, it's because Kamala Harris is in the midst of her honeymoon. That is in full swing. Now, I've seen polls all over the flippin' place. I've seen polls from the Wall Street Journal saying that Kamala Harris is less likely to be trusted on a number of key issues, less likely to be trusted than Donald Trump. I've seen polls showing that she's competitive or even leading in a lot of crucial swing states. They are absolutely all over the place, but it shouldn't be like that, because up until apparently we're being told very recently, she was the most disliked vice president, at least in modern U.S. history. So what is actually going on? Just to put a finer point on this was just a month ago in the media. Elon Musk, head of X, Tesla, SpaceX, he's tweeted this video a couple of times. Listen to this. This is just confounding. This was just a month ago. 1 month ago. 1 month ago. Listen to this.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game.
His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp.
There's not a problem.
He was sharp.
He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
The president is sharp, and he is tireless.
He is sharp
as ever.
And he's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
His brain is good. He's still great.
He is sharp in meetings.
I believe the people who say that behind closed doors, Joe Biden remains sharp.
In meetings, Joe Biden is sharp.
He's sharp. He's fit.
There is nothing to these.
That was a month ago.
Suggestions that somehow
a month ago.
Not sharp. He's sharp as
a month ago. They were telling us that Joe Biden was the smartest guy in the history of the universe. Last week, he was basically forced out at gunpoint with a silent coup, essentially, although there's some debate I've been seeing that the Biden that we've seen since he came back from his Delaware home isn't actually the real Biden. We won't talk about that, though. And yet, here we are on Monday morning, the 29th of July, and it's like none of that happened. It's like we didn't come within an inch of Donald Trump getting murdered, assassinated on live television. It's as if there wasn't a coup last weekend. It's as if none of this stuff happened. This weekend was a slow news weekend. Basically nothing happened. It's like we're all moving on. How dumb is that? And it doesn't get any better. This was just back in April on CNN, where a CNN roundtable said that Kamala Harris, now the presumptive Democrat nominee, is actually a drag on Joe Biden. This was just in April.
Interesting news. Recent focus groups conducted by the super PAC Republican voters against Trump found that swing voters don't like Harris. And focus groups conducted by the Democratic National Committee also found Harris rubs some people the wrong way. So, Jonah, how big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
I think she's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision of his presidency to pick her in the first place. And one of the special reasons that she's a drag is Biden's age concerns people. They worry that he can't fill a term. They worry that he's not up to the job. And so the vice president matters more than they normally do. I generally think going into the future that Democrats really should not nominate or front people who come from decidedly all blue states, unless they're like once in a generation talents like Barack Obama, because Kamala Harris does not know how to talk to the center or to the right. She only really knows how to sort of speak the language of the base of the party, and that's 34% of the electorate.
Let me pick up on that, because it's not just focus groups that are down on Harris right now. In a recent poll, national poll, 40% approved of the vice president's job performance, while 55% disapproved. And Kara, to Jonah's point, given the fact that people are so worried, voters on all political stripes are so worried about Biden's age and whether he's going to last for 4 more years, is it a problem when they're not very satisfied or reassured by the person who would succeed him?
Doesn't really matter. She's not going to be replaced, and they don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her. And
that was April on CNN. April of this year on CNN. A round table hosted by Chris Wallace, all in agreement that Kamala Harris was a drag on the most sharp president in the history of sharp presidents, we were told. In March of this year, the Washington Post, of all places, ran an op-ed titled, "For the good of the country, or for the country's sake, Vice President Harris should step aside." Fast forward now to the end of July. Kamala Harris, we're being told, this is normal. We just go through coups all the time. And now that we've gone through it, Kamala Harris is the best thing since sliced bread. What are we doing here? Seemingly nobody cares that what just happened in the last month actually happened. This might be one of the most consequential months in modern American political history, at least in the last 100 years. Might be one of the most consequential months. And everybody's just kind of moving on, acting like this is totally normal. Has something changed? Has anything changed? Has Kamala Harris suddenly been slain in the spirit of the age? Nope. She's the same as she ever was. Here she is on video, which you're just going to hear the audio of. I wish you could see the body language of one Kamala Harris. Here she is accepting Barack and Michelle Obama's endorsement. Listen to this.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together.
What does that mean? You're both together. Like that's a surprise?
Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So,
if you could see her body language, that is not somebody who's necessarily flattered. That's somebody who knows, ha ha ha. I know you didn't want me, but I got you over the barrel now, so you're along for the ride with me, not me with you. Just fake. Utterly fake. If she picks Pete Buttigieg for her running mate, it's going to be a fake and gay ticket. This is just, I can't get over this, so I'm not going to. The month of July has been nuts. Absolutely nuts, as I kind of detailed on Friday. And here we are. We just had our first slow news weekend. And everybody's just moving on. This is an indictment of the people of this country more than it is anyone or anything else. We can't keep our focus for 12 seconds. My pet goldfish called and said, "That's embarrassing." Anyway, moving on. One final thing. It's okay to not be okay with what went down at the opening ceremonies for the Olympics. Now, up until the end of this spectacle, and it was a spectacle as all opening ceremonies, especially for Summer Olympics are, I thought it was interesting. They had the athletes coming down the river or Seine or whatever, however it's pronounced, instead of coming into a stadium, as is usually the case. That's unique. There were some really weird musical acts. I just chalked it up. That's just France being France. And then at the end, they brought out the drag queens. And there was one screen capture of one of the drag queens or one of the, androgynous beings involved with the acts at the opening ceremonies with his nutsack hanging out of his pants on live television. So, that's one thing. But then the drag queens recreated the Last Supper scene. Now, we're being told now that this was actually some sort of recreation of some Greek god. Like some Greek god of wine and fertility, which basically means debauchery. Those things put together, as if that makes that scene that much better. But you look at the side by side of the Last Supper painting and what they tried to pull off at the Olympics, and it's pretty clear what they were going for. They were making a mockery of the Last Supper with drag queens. And obviously, this ticked off a lot of people, rightfully so. But then, the Tisk Tisk Christian Brigade came out, and I thought, when I saw one of the takes that I saw, I thought this was just kind of a one-off. But no, I saw other people postulating this as well. Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker, he of the very bold and courageous speech to Benedictine College. You know that story. Don't need to regale you of that now. He posted the video. Of the drag queens at the Olympics, saying, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For what things a man shall sow, those also shall he reap. For what he soweth in his flesh, of the flesh also shall reap corruption. But he that soweth in the Spirit, of the Spirit shall reap a life everlasting." Galatians 6, 7, and 8. I saw Christians coming out and saying, you should not use Galatians 6, 7 here to condemn the bastardization of the Last Supper with drag queens, individuals who have completely denied and rejected God's design for them. You shouldn't use Galatians 6, 7. I saw this take as well over the weekend. The consistent posting of Galatians 6, 7 in regards to the Olympics yesterday is proof we are not a people rooted in grace but condemnation. Really? The law of sowing and reaping, that's a universal law. It's a universal principle. It's not for one people or the other. It is just universally true regardless of whether or not you or I like it. And this take that I saw, and I saw that other people were complaining of takes like this as well, is just stupid, and that's being kind. Condemning people, which is what this individual is doing, condemning people for correctly pointing out a universal truth in order to slander those same people as being filled with condemnation, that's a take that David French is even embarrassed over. What are we doing here? So no, if you've seen that take elsewhere, don't think twice about it. Don't think twice about it. It is not a sin to be outraged, to be heartbroken even, by what you saw at the Olympic opening ceremony. Those people are groomers. This was supposedly all ages television. And making a mockery of the Last Supper with drag queens. You should be upset about that. I'd say maybe your conscience is seared if you're not. That'll do it for Monday, after a very slow news weekend. We'll be back at it tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.